You are welcome to OwanaPaedia, your one-stop center for the history of this country, Uganda, and the history of the rest of the world. My name is Tony Geoffrey Owana, as usual, and in charge of all operations out there, a young man you'll likely not see for a very long time, is Herbert Semiano, son of the late Corporal Samuel Matovu, resting in peace somewhere in Chagwe, but hovering in the distance and admiring what his son is doing at OwanaPaedia. I must welcome you to the year 2024. Or some people you say 2024, but that's way beyond my age group. And we promise you that there has been a hiatus somewhere, but 2024 is going to be grand year at OwanaPaedia. It's going to be grand. Those who hadn't subscribed, munange. I repeat. So where are we going this time? OwanaPaedia is going to take you back 28 years ago. The year was 1984. The month was May. The date was 28th. We had just celebrated what was called Heroes Day during the time of President Milton Obote and the Uganda People's Congress government. Heroes Day at that time was the day when Dr. Apollo Milton Obote returned from exile, landed in Bushenyi, and that became the permanent venue of celebrations marking Heroes Day during the period Uganda People's Congress was in charge from 1980 to the middle of 1985.
Tony Owana really loves our history. He has a passion for doing research, and he shares all this history with you so that you can make informed choices. Tony Owana really loves our history. He has a passion for doing research, and he shares all
Banange, have you subscribed to OwanaPaedia?
so that you can make informed
I don't know what you are waiting for.
Give me OwanaPaedia, give me OwanaPaedia.
Omukatabaka kahandikirwe omuntu Grace Ibingira
has said certain things which are clear enough to me, at least, that it cares nothing about the people of Uganda.
kokushoma katabako nyuko kunkashomere kinyetegerese butuno ngo Ibingira tine kimusasize abantu ba Uganda.
He cares only about himself being a ruler.
Wechi kumusasa kandi cyane na mutima cyakurana na rota munanda kutegeka.
Ibingira has forgotten that there are no longer kingdoms in Uganda.
Ibingira no shangwa yebirwe kwiyakiro ko yayibwa ngo mu Uganda ubugabe bukaragaho.
He thinks that the politics of the 50s, where a few rulers used to go to the governor in Entebbe and demand that unless you do this and that, my kingdom will not participate, is still existing.
Na kiteka mu myaka y'nyuma ya 50 ubwo abagabe babirundana n'abakama bakaza Entebbe bakaza wa gavana bakamujya ngo wabatakozere iki ingo takozere kiriya ubugabe bwanyu turukukikiriza wone kwa kuteka tekero myaka y'iki.
So after the celebrations of 27th, on 28th, President Obote met elders of Ankole. In those days, Ankole used to be two districts, Bushenyi and Mbarara. They met in Bushenyi, and to welcome Dr. Obote to the event was the Minister of Industry at the time, Dr. Adonia Tiberondwa. When he welcomed him, he then invited one of the senior elders, Reverend Canon Kamjanduzi, to also welcome Dr. Obote on behalf of the elders of Ankole. There's a suspicion that some of Canon Kamjandu's children, we are already working with Yoweri Museveni in the bush, but I'm still investigating that. What is certain is that the late Canon Kamjanduzi is the father of the late, very outspoken judge, Justice Kenneth Kakuru, who also recently passed on. So when he was speaking to the president, whom he knew to be a very, very strong Republican who is against traditional rulers and all that, he said, Muzei, Dr. Obote, it would be good if you also now reached out to the elders of other former kingdom areas, just like you have done with Charles Wesley Iremangoma. Because at that time, the Uganda People's Congress had just signed an understanding with the rebels of the Rwenzururu in 1982. They came down from the mountain. So he was saying, extend it that way. Of course, Dr. Obote answered him in characteristic style, but that is where OwanaPaedia is taking you. This wonderful work was captured for us by the late Venison Mona when he was still with the Presidential Press Unit. It is brought to you now, after all those years, by OwanaPaedia. Take a look.
Elders from Bushenyi district welcoming the president to a meeting, and this is 1984.
Here for you, we have elders from Bushenyi and a few from Mbarara district. They are very grateful that you accepted them to come and see you, and also grateful that you have been able to give them very good lunch, which they have had this afternoon with you. I would now like to call upon Mzee Kamjanduzi to greet you on behalf of the elders of from these two districts. Mzee Kamjanduzi.
Itumba nyankore koza ari umukama otukarame koza ari umfumu otukeze tukuzeye.
We in the Ankole traditional culture, if you have a son who becomes a king, you say, long live the king. If your son, well, is is really a traditional doctor, all you wish him is, may you have the powers to cure the diseases of those who are ill.
Nyenda kusima ahabwanje aboku torana kuba mukuru w'abagurusi bankore yona.
Secondly, I want to express my profound gratitude to Your Excellency for honoring me with this unique title of being the chief elder for the entire former Ankole kingdom.
Keke kyonka nyenda kusima ahabo kuhindura Iremangoma omukuru w'abagurusi batora.
The third point, Your Excellency, I really want to express my sincere appreciation for your foresight and diplomacy that made it possible for the king of Rwenzururu movement, Iremangoma, for him to come down the mountains and settle down with the fellow Ugandans.
Kayo konkani kigamba kayenzire koko rotyo muri district bwanyuma hakabamo abakuru b'abagurusi bwanyuma tukagira urukiko ab'abagurusi Kampala tukahanura habihanga ritu.
Your Excellency, as you have done with the Rangomangoma and as you have honored me with this title of being Chief Elder in here, we would want to request Your Excellency that this concept be extended to the entire nation so that we have a recognized institution of elders that can discuss the affairs of this nation more formally.
Rukundo w'abakurisi nkayenzere kushaba ko tware ikitinsa cy'abaguriso kaza haruguru yabo ahabo kuba tori kubasa kwebembera abagurisi kuno batari umugurisi mugenzi wabo.
Your Excellency, we know your love for the elders, and we do know that you are the leader of these elders. Your Excellency, to be the leader of the elders would logically require that you are also an elder. I want to thank you from down deep in our hearts, our profound thanks that you have made it possible for us to have a voice in the UPC government.
Yakindi no kureba mungono itwetwi no mwanya wo kushemererwa naiwe.
One other point which has no price is that you have always afforded us a moment for us to share with you our thoughts and ideas. It's very rare to have this moment with the President.
Elders and members of the Congress.
Umukuru wa bamzeyi abandi kana ba member ba Congress.
This meeting of the 28th May has also become a tradition in UPC following the big Heroes Day of 27th May.
Koko mukucherebera urukiko urwebra na munana mu kwezi kwa gatano rumwaka ubundi kuratizo berhango urwebra na mushanju yo kwa gatano na cyeje cyo hati kibere kimwabi afayo ebyo mu kigombe cyitu.
I have in the past taken very seriously statements made by you at this meeting.
Koko mukukimanya ebigambo by'umungambira aha twaza mu rukiko nkuru butosha mitwara nk'ebigambo bikuru kandi nk'ebyamani.
I want to assure you that some of the statements you have made today regarding the work of the party and the work of the government in the districts of Bushenyi and Ankole will be given the highest possible consideration.
Nina kubahamisa ngwe bwambe mwangambira umuyobozi yogu ibinaka kwate n'imikorere y'ikigombe n'imikorere ya government mu district ya Bushenyi kana no muri nkore yona njya kubitwara nk'ibintu bikuru kandi nza kubiteka ho munonga.
This party and the Uganda People's Congress was founded on principles.
Ekigombe cyitu cya Uganda People's Congress tukakironda tukakitandika bigenderwa.
The most important principle is the freedom of the people of Uganda.
Ekiri kugenderwa ekikuru munonga ibintu kugenderwa mu kibino mwe twatandikireho no kuhereza omuntu wa Uganda obusinge okweshariramu.
The struggle for freedom must continue. It will never end, because all the time men and women must free themselves from enslavement by other men.
Orutaro runingo kurwana uko kwiyaho uko gumana ubusinge bwa buri muntu umutima gwe okwiyo kugemeserezwa ningo ndicyo muntu kwenda kwirura ko nguku orutaro rundi ko gumizamo.
May 27th is now a well-established date insofar as the UPC is concerned in reasserting our continued and continuous struggle for greater and greater freedom for the people of Uganda.
Ekiro cyo kwezi cyari na mushanju mu kwezi kwa gatano gutuzo mu rukiko rw'izoberyo hona twongera kwehamiza kandi no kuhamisiriza ngo tugumante Rwanda ubusinge kandi ubusinge kweyongera abantu kweshara mu kibaro kwenda.
There is indeed a problem about struggling for freedom.
Harimo ubuzubu mu Rwanda ubusinge.
Yesterday, before the liberation in 1979, millions and millions of Ugandans wanted liberation and wanted freedom.
Obutwabire tutakabingire ngamba nyenka umwaka gwara kumirwe na nshanju na mwenda abantu obusira no busirira bakaba bino bagamba ngo rubendo businge ngo rubendo kucungurwa.
But when liberation came, there is enough evidence to show that some of our people did not know what to do with the freedom that liberation brought.
Nuko abantu bindi bambagamba ngo rubendo kucungurwa kutwaheze kucungurwa no kutunga ubusinge kandi n'ubumanzi abamwe abantu mu Uganda bakabaramanyire nenga tubaritegereze amakuru kucungurwa ago.
It is therefore the responsibility of leaders like you to constantly remind people that the struggle for freedom must continue, and to remind and to educate people into deeper understanding of the meaning of freedom.
Nabwo cyo n'umurimo gwanyu nkabebembezi okugumana umugambira abantu obutaroha amakuru ga okugira ubusinge no kweshariraho kandi no kongera kubamanyisa amakuru ho nago munda agara kumanyisa ubusinge obwo kweshariramo.
The UPC is described as the party of the peasants, of the workers, of youth, and of ideas.
UPC n'ekigombe eky'abantu ab'obutosha n'ekigombe eky'eminyeto n'ekigombe ekine ekikubasa kureta ebiteekateeko bisya ekiri kuteekateeka munonga.
Now, you will not hear in that description the word elders.
Umura UPC ko kutwakigambo emirimo yayo no kujya n'ekigombe cyaba no buratari mu kujya ngo UPC n'ekigombe cyaba muzeyi.
But in fact, within that description, the elders are included.
Konga ko kumwahurira ibyo bitongore twagambaho kugira ngo UPC n'ekibina cyaba n'ekibina cyabariya na ba muzeyi nabo barumu.
It is the elders who have been sustaining the economy of Uganda until they passed that responsibility to the present peasants, who are still comparatively young.
Mukimanyaje ngo ba muzeyi nibo bantu aborira Uganda ekatungu uko mbyo butunji n'ibindi byo kutungura banyuma bakira imyaka yabo yazandika kujyana igenda ubushobozi ubu bakabukwasa kandi abandi abantu abakira bato okukirabo.
To be a respectable worker, one has to learn what was done in that field in the previous years by those who are now elders.
Wenda kuba umukozi murungi notekwa kwegera abakirinju okumanye bambakore nyuma no kubamba bikora bene ukabona kubikoraje nkabo umukatabaka kahandikirwe umuntu arukwetu Ibingira
has said certain things which are clear enough to me, at least, that it cares nothing about the people of Uganda.
Kokushoma katabako nyuko kunkashomire kinyetegerese butuno ngo Ibingira tini kimusasize abantu ba Uganda.
He cares only about himself being a ruler.
Which kumusasa kandi cyane nta mutima cyakurana na rota munanda kutegeka.
Ibingira has forgotten that there are no longer kingdoms in Uganda.
Ibingira no shangwa yebirwe kwiyakiro ko yayibwa ngo mu Uganda ubugabe bukaragaho.
He thinks that the politics of the 50s, where a few rulers used to go to the governor in Entebbe and demand that unless you do this and that, my kingdom will not participate, is still existing.
Na kiteka mu myaka y'50 ubwo bagabe babirundana n'abakama bakaza Entebbe bakaza gavana bakamujyango wabatakozireki ingo takozireki ubugabe bwanyu tukukikiriza wone kwa kuteka tekero myaka y'iki.
Mark that. Dr. Obote is getting concerned that whereas people were clamoring for liberation during the 8 years in which President Amin was in charge, he's fearful that having been liberated, it seems the people liberated did not know what to do with the peace and the liberation, with the possibility that they could either squander it or waste it. He's particularly unhappy with the recent article that was written by Mr. Grace Ibingira, who has also since passed on. He wrote that article in 1984 and was describing Uganda at the time as a dictatorship. That really annoyed Dr. Obote. When we come back, Dr. Obote continues with Ibingira stressing the need to sanitize the area of elements of a certain other color, which he called DP. Let me warn you from the advance. This video is very old. It is really vintage. Where you see colors like green, we must tell you immediately. That color was not green, because to put on green at a UPC function in those days was not wise. But because the colors have aged over time, what was red is now seen in these old videos as green. It is important for OwanaPaedia to emphasize that. Don't go away, we are coming back.
On that, the message to Mbarara is this. What we have, we hold. The second message is this. Don't allow those islands with funny colors to remain in the next election. It is a shame
Necho kushara munonga.
That the constituency nearest to Tanzania should be in the hands of the DP.
Okureba ngochanga. Echele Tanzania. Necho kubaza. Ngochanga echele Tanzania chikatwarwa abechigombe chentomi.
We brought freedom through there.
Obusinge bwetukabuya Tanzania.
That is the gate to freedom. You don't put somebody who is lazy, who doesn't understand freedom to guard your gate of freedom.